the association, as well as a profit on the subsidiary company as adjusted for taxation purposes. If you now turn towards the back of the report, pages 21 to 23, you will see that the subscription income for the year remained virtually unchanged, and that held up very well. And there was a small decrease in the number of members over the amount of 2018. Looking down at the administration expenses, the association continues to support projects in the interest of members throughout the year by engaging professional support in fighting and campaigning, such as continuing work against Uber, obtaining various transport surveys, and the cost of mounting challenges against various road scheme changes and restrictions on taxi access to various bus lanes and roads. You will see, looking further down the page, that legal aid to members at 489,912 continues to be one of the largest costs of the association, but demonstrating what a valuable service this continues to be on behalf of its members, which no other taxi association can match. And the payments this year represent a 17% increase over the costs for 2018. Another important benefit of membership of the association is the sickness scheme, which supports members who can become ill and cannot work by making weekly payments to them. And in this year, that amounted to £222,133, which again is not matched by any other taxi association. The association is in a very strong financial position, which we will discuss a bit later. And the Committee of Management made a conscious decision to spend some of the available funds on the legal aid to its members, as well as on marketing and lobbying. And it is due to the very healthy financial position of the association that it is possible to provide these services and to fight so robustly on the members' behalf. Now, if you can please turn back to pages 7 and 8. You will see, looking at the consolidated balance sheet, the tangible assets of £659,540 represent the property that was held at Woodfield Road and other assets owned by the group, less amounts of depreciation. As you know, the association sold its premises at Woodfield Road and moved to 133 Great Suffolk Street in July 2020. This freed up additional funds which were tied up in the old property, and this transaction will be represented in the consolidated account for the year ending 30 September 2020. The sale of Woodfield Road raised approximately 21.25 million, and the purchase of 133 Great Suffolk Street cost 15.6 million, leaving a surplus of about 5.65 million before the costs of sale and purchase have been deducted. In addition, part of the surplus will have to be satisfied corporation tax that will be payable on the sale, and this has yet to be finally established. But a draft computation shows that a tax liability in the region of £1.25 million will be payable. A detailed computation will be prepared and the liability reflected in the 2020 accounts. In addition, between 300,000 and 400,000 was spent on fitting out 133 Great Suffolk Street. The balance of the funds after the payment of all tax due will be available to the association for use by the committee for the benefit of the members. As I say, at this time it is not possible to say how much the final balance of cash available to the association will be, as the tax liability on the gain has yet to be established. Tangible assets in the property at Woodfield Road, original cost. The reduction in the tangible assets is therefore to reflect the depreciation on the property and its improvements. For the avoidance of doubt, the freehold property is held in the name of Ltda Enterprises, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the association, which means that the freehold property is ultimately owned by the association. Moving on down to the stocks of £20,745 comprise stocks of crystal taxes, which are given out to members without charge, as well as other promotional material. The net current assets of the group are 864,491, and current assets cover current liabilities by a ratio of over 3 to 1, which shows the continuing healthy and strong position of the group. Usually a good ratio would be 2 to 1. This ratio shows that the association has the ability to meet its commitments as and when they fall due, and this position is strengthened even further by the fact that over 91% of the current assets are held in cash, which means that the association does not even have to wait for its debtors to be turned into cash in order to meet its liabilities. And looking further down on page 7, the shareholders' funds remain extremely healthy at £1,524,031. If you would now please turn to page 9. This is the association balance sheet, and the tangible assets there of 12,667 show the value of the association's assets and office equipment, less amounts provided for depreciation on those assets. Investments. The investment in the wholly owned subsidiary represents the amount of investment in the share capital of Ltda Enterprise Limited, together with the amount due from Ltda Enterprises on the intercompany account, which has accumulated over several years. You will see, looking further down, the net assets of the association remain very healthy at £2,541,778 at the year end. If you further down still, the called-up share capital of £19,884 at 30 September 2019 shows a small decrease in the number of members over the association, but it still has 9,942 members at the year end. If you now turn to page 11, this is the consolidated cash flow statement, and this shows money that has come in and how the money has been spent. And if you look about a third of the way down, you will see that corporation tax paid of £9,908 relates to the corporation tax liability for the year ended 30th of September 2020 to 30 September 2018, I beg your pardon, that was paid during the current year. At the bottom, the net decrease in cash of £847,000 represents the fact that the association paid out more than it generated in support of its members, which almost mirrors the consolidated loss for the year before tax of £864,713, which has already been discussed. Moving on to pages 12 to 14, these main accounting policies adopted by the group in connection with the preparation of its financial statements. Looking now at the foot of page 2014, you see the turnover figure there. The figure of 146,630 represents rent, services received by Ltd Enterprises, its subsidiary company. And the rental income for the year has reduced as no new tenants were sought in readiness for the sale of the Woodfield Road premises. And the turnover of the LTDA of 2.172 million represents a subscription income, which we have already discussed. And if you turn over to page 15, it is pleasing to note that Taxi Magazine continues to provide a nice healthy surplus of £38,000 in the year. Further down on page 15 at note 6, taxation, this shows the split of the taxation charge between the association and its subsidiary, and the level of this taxation charge has already been discussed with you earlier. If you now turn to pages 16 and 17, these pages show in more detail the movements in fixed assets during the year of the group and of the association. Moving to page 18, the top note there shows the investment in its subsidiary Ltda Enterprises Limited, and shows it in a bit more detail for you. Pages 18 and 19 so detail the group and the association's assets and liabilities which are due for payment within 1 year of the balance sheet date. On page 19 at note 12, we detail the movement in the shares and the membership over the year, which again shows the small decrease over the year. Note number 13, the accumulated fund. This details the movement in the fund, which is shown on the balance sheets of the group and the associations on pages 7 and 9, which have already been discussed with you. And moving on to pages 20 to 22, these pages detail items which have already been discussed with you. So that concludes my through of the account, and we're happy to receive any questions that you may have on them. Thank you.
Right, what happens now is, for those of you that want to ask questions, there's a question bar at the bottom, and you can type in questions there. The first question that we've got has come in, which is to the auditors, is why is taxi newspaper accounts, why are they separate from those of the rest of the LTDA? Why is taxi newspaper treated separately? It's the first question. You can answer that, please, Simon.
Well, the taxi newspaper is shown separately because there could be tax treatment, special tax treatment for the newspaper, which is run as a trade and is taxed differently from the main activities of the association. At the current position, moment in time, the Taxi Association does not have any tax liability, as there were some losses in prior years, but the results have to be kept separate, basically for that reason, so that there could be tax consequences for it and the association in the future. Thank you for that.
Simon, the next question we've got is the cost of the new building. Why is the figures for the new building not shown in the accounts? Well, I can answer that, save you the lower. The building sale, the accounts that we're currently reviewing are 18 and 19's accounts, and the building will obviously appear in the 19-20 accounts. I'll cover this in my report anyway, so let's do that. The next question we've got is, why has Enterprises not been scrapped? Why do we still have Ltda Enterprises? Again, I think that one's more for me, and I'll cover that again in my General Secretary's report, because I think that's very relevant to the building sale. The next question that we've got in, if you just, sorry, bear me 1 second. Can you confirm what the tax liabilities are on the new building? Again, obviously you can't, because we haven't done that yet. Again, I can give a brief rundown of the building sale, which is obviously, yeah. Do you want to just, so you got your microphone on?
I did raise that point in my review of the accounts. Obviously, we haven't seen the final figures for the sale and the purchase of the new property, so we can't produce a very accurate computation. But doing some draft figures, we computed that there could be a liability in the region of £1.25 million. But as I said, this has to be confirmed.
The next question we've got is asked about the cost of the new building. Seems to have gone up by £500,000 in cost and fixtures. Why is that? I'm struggling with that, because the figures for the new building are not in these accounts. So that obviously relates to the old building in Woodfield Road. I can't. Can you see where that is in the accounts? Let's deal with the next question while I look that up. Why were office expenses and legal expenses broken down as they are? Office expenses and legal expenses, why are they broken down in the manner they are?
Trying to understand why our expenses are broken down the way they are. The short answer is we follow the consistent presentation of those expenses that have been adopted for years and years and years. So the important thing that we were doing, first of all, the bonafide business categorized correctly. Secondly, try and make them consistent comparison and analysis. So the actual measurement and the way in which they're presented is just for consistency, and could be rest assured that from our audit point of view, they are all bona fide expenses. I also want to just comment back on the tax. As Steve said, and he's going to cover in his report, the sale takes place in the next accounting year. All the big transactions you will look at next year's basically shut next year, and the transaction, the sale the profit on the sale and the acquisition costs, you'll all be able to see clearly set out in next year's accounts. So they cannot be reflected this year. So it took place so long after next year. So we will do detailed tax computations, and as Simon said, had a rough look at it, but it's very complicated. It involves things that we read all over relief, problems with stamp duty, VAT, and what costs are deductible in the purchase. So we can't do a detailed comp, but we thought you might be interested to have a rough idea of the effect of the tax, and it is approximately £1.25 million. I hope that helps you.
The next question we've got is, you said, which is obviously you, Simon, you said that 283,000 paid out through the health scheme. Does that come out of funds or a separate insurance?
The association pays out those funds, the scheme, £222,000, which is represented there as a cost for the association, which is set out on page 21.
Anything that's paid out by the insurers is in addition to that. That 220,000 is spent by the association on the members.
The next question again is a repeat of an earlier question on can I ask if Ltda Enterprises has been dissolved yet? At the last 3 AGMs, the General Secretary had said it will be. Again, that's not really a question for you. I'll come to that in a minute in my General Secretary's report. Just bear with us. Let's just see what the next questions are. That seems to be all the questions that are currently on the screen. Just bear with us a second. It's updating about every 15 seconds. There's a question that's just come up about pensions. Funny enough, I had an email on this last week asking if the Ltda have got a pension fund, a separate pension fund for staff. I'm not going to answer that. No, we don't. There is no pension fund. People make their own individual pension arrangements. There is no Ltda pension fund. I had an email on that from somebody last week. That's obviously one doing around. There is no pension fund. So I've now got a follow-up question. Is the pension fund in enterprises? No, the pension fund's not in enterprises because there is no pension fund. That's it. Let's just, another question, just scroll up. Hold on. Well, that appears to be it on the question front. What I'll do a General Secretary's report. And as questions come up, you can stay with us, Simon. As questions come up, if they are taking a few seconds to come through. So if a question comes through on the accounts again, I'll go back. We can go back to it. None of it is an issue. General Secretary's report. In what has probably been the worst year in living memory for the taxi trade. The worst, the number of taxi drivers is down at least 2,000. We're down to probably less than 19,000 drivers. We've lost 4,000 vehicles. the number of drivers in all reality is probably down a lot more than 2,000. That's just drivers that surrendered a license to TfL. Obviously, a lot of drivers who have gone on to do something else and got no intentions of coming back to the trade, but possibly just put their badge and bill in the drawer and not surrendered it. I don't think we've seen the end in the drop in numbers just yet. Our membership is obviously down. It's terribly down. We're around about the 9,000 figure. It's very difficult to give an accurate figure because we had people take payment holidays breaks, you know, when they were not working or they were working for Asda or Tesco's or something. We've had others come back. We are realistically 1,000 members down, give or take. What I can say is the decline has dropped. I mean, we had some months earlier in the year where we were losing 200 or 300 members a month. That's stopped. And we are currently in a sort of limbo land where we put members on and we lose members on a daily basis. Never have our membership department. Winners and leavers and big breaks, payment holidays. It's been absolutely massive. Moving on, the building sale. The building sale is obviously very relevant, and a lot of people are asking questions on it. So here we go. The figures will all be in next year's accounts, but we sold the old building for £21.25 million. That, as you will recall, the red book valuation that we had for Knight Frank was 18.5. We sold it for 21.25. We did amazingly well in pulling this sale and this move off during the COVID. For many months this year, we were meant to move back at Easter. It was all meant to have been done over the April weekend. People who were buying our building, their funders pulled out. They had to seek alternative funding. There was all sorts of things went on, and at one point it was really looking like it wasn't going to happen. And even in fact, when we actually moved, we had to make some decisions that at the time caused me some sleepless nights, whereby we moved into the building when we didn't even own it. We still own Woodfield Road, and we were sort of squatting here in the new building, and that took weeks to resolve itself, for the money to be transferred. But look, the reality is that the sale has gone through, and as of today, we've received every penny that was coming to us for the building sale. One of the questions that's come up several times is enterprises. But we were going to scrap enterprises, and in fact we are now still going to wind it down. But the reason that it wasn't done is because the building, Old Woodfield Road, was owned by enterprises. And the moment that we made a decision to sell it, it would have been rather time-consuming, costly, and unnecessary to transfer the building from enterprises to Ltda and then to sell it. And so we took the decision on tax advice, which I'll come to in a moment, that the decision that we took was to leave it in enterprises and to sell it out of enterprises rather than to move it across. The reason this was done is we took some very serious tax advice as to how we could minimise the Ltda's exposure to various tax bills. The method that is used by most companies and associations and anybody who owns a building is that when you buy or sell a building, especially when you're buying a building, you create a company specifically to do it. That company is called an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. What you do, you create a company, call it Ltda special purpose vehicle. You use that to buy the new building. And through perfectly legal loopholes in taxation, you can avoid paying a large amount of capital gains tax. You can even avoid paying stamp duty. If you've had the SPV set up for more than a year, you can lose your capital gains. If it's been set up between, I think it's 2 and 5 years, you can even lose the stamp duty. And that is obviously what we were looking at doing, but we were unable to do that because in order to do it, we would have had to transfer the building into a special purpose vehicle. which we would have to create in the members' names, and our current rules forbid us from giving the members anything valued at £2. So obviously we wouldn't do it, and that was a bit of a disappointment for us. And as a result of that, it probably cost the association £1 million in tax and various tax money that we could have avoided paying that we've had to pay. And all of that will feature very clearly in the 1920 tax accounts when we present them to you next year, and you will get a value of what it costs us because we weren't able to do that purpose here. What we would have wanted to have done would have been to have changed our rules and to allow us to do it and to give the members the building as a whole. So we would have divided the building up. The membership was on 10,000. Everybody would have had a share in the building, and then we could have avoided it. Obviously, our rules being what they are, and with various bits and pieces going on, we weren't allowed to do that. And that is a great, well, it's an expensive, very expensive misnomer not being able to do it. We're very, very disappointed, but nonetheless, we've paid the tax. So for those of you watching who think we should pay every penny tax that everyone's due, you're right. That's what we've done, and we were able to avoid virtually none of the tax that any other company and anybody else would have done. Questions we keep getting asked about pensions. I've just got another one come up. You know, there are no trust funds. There is no pension fund. Everybody's got their own pension, and they make their own personal arrangements. I've just got another question come up on how many members are logged into this webinar. At the moment, it is 39. So there are 39 people logged. We also got some questions the last few days over whether it's being recorded. Yes, it is, and we'll look at trying to put it on the website later this week or early part next week. Carrying on. Moving on to where we are this year with the COVID and the effects on the trade and the LTDA's efforts to remedy it. The problem that we have is that many taxi drivers around the UK are licensed by individual authorities. Some of those authorities have actually found money in Northern Ireland, in Sheffield, in parts of Scotland and parts of Wales, where the devolved assemblies have found money to actually subsidise their drivers over and above the furlough schemes and the SEIS schemes set up by the government. We have been lobbying constantly for taxi drivers in London, our members, to receive such funding. In order to do it, TfL need to be given a specific fund by the government that they can then give us. So those of you that follow the news and politics, you'll be aware that Transport for London came within 15 minutes of going broke earlier in the year, and they'd already started to mothball Crossrail, and they had to sort of dust off the mothball when the deal was done. I spoke with Heidi Alexandra. I spoke with the new Transport Commissioner this week. As a result of that, they are now going to specifically ask the government, as part of the TfL bailout in January, for extra funding to subsidise the loss in earnings of the taxi trade in London. Two ways they're looking at doing it. They're looking at doing it as a simple payment for everybody who holds a licence. And the other way that they're looking at doing it is to fund possibly electric charging for a year for existing owners of Nissans or LEVTs, because that can come out of a separate green fund. They've actually been given money that can only be used for green issues, and we suggested to them that they could use that part of funding to charge for a year. In other words, a never charging cab for a year. The figure that we've asked for is £2,500 per existing owner, individual owner. Obviously, wouldn't apply to fleet. I'm not necessarily optimistic we're going to get that. I am reasonably optimistic that we will get some funding forward. The big issue in the lack of funding is, and one of the things that we've been working diligently on, is the number of members who fell through the existing furlough schemes introduced by the Chancellor. The big issue there was that anyone who had bought a new vehicle and had claimed the capital allowances on that vehicle, as they're asked to do, it comes off your bottom line, off your earnings. And as a result, we had members who were declaring significant sums of money as earnings. But because they'd claimed capital allowances, their earnings figures were very low. And as a result, they received the furlough funding based on that. So we've got members who were declaring lots of money who were suddenly getting literally in furlough money. It seems to be across the board for the guys that invested in the new vehicles, not even the electric ones, newer vehicles in recent years and had claimed the capital allowances. They suffered the worst. We have been banging our head against the wall with the Treasury on this, but just recently, as last week, we've found that we've had MPs write, we've written loads of letters, we've had the Mayor write to the Chancellor, we've had everybody write to the Chancellor. I've met Baroness Spear, she's the Minister for Taxes, one of the key issues we raised. And the response that we get back constantly is, oh, don't worry, this will make universal credit. But we may have got a positive result on this last week. Speaking to members of the Transport Select Committee, they were very interested in hearing how it's broken down. And they're currently, we're currently working with them to detail some specific examples that they're going to raise at the Treasury. The Select Committee have quite a powerful body in that way, and they're going to be armed with the standard reply that we've been getting from the Minister and from the Treasury about universal credit and SEIS, and so they're going to word the questions. In other words, don't bother telling us that. We've seen that 1,000 times. So we're lobbying there. The other big one that's coming at us down the track is that the furlough scheme money is going to be based in this year. So it's based in 2020. So irrespective of when your tax year begins or ends as a taxi driver, any furlough money that you've got is going to be taxed this year. So if you're a member whose tax year begins or ends in, say, August, whereas you wouldn't normally, your earnings would cease in August. The way it's going to work is any furlough money you've received after August goes in this year's accounts. So we've got a situation where we've got members who got very little money, but because the little money they did get has gone into the 1 year, is pushing them up into a higher tax bracket. So not only did they not receive much from the Chancellor, and they've had very little in the way of income, their tax bill is going to go up massively, and they've probably gone up 20 to 40% tax in some cases. I mean, talk about unintended consequence, and obviously that's again is something we've raised Treasury, we've raised with the Select Committee, and moving forward. The other big issue facing members other than money is these LTNs, these local transport networks, the massive installation of these cycle and pedestrian schemes across London, all of which have been done without any consultation whatsoever, all of which have been done through money given to local authorities by central government. And it's been an absolute disaster. The problem that we have with all of these, it's not just us, as you'll be aware, it's many businesses and everyone's up in arms over it, is the problem is that the funding authorities under emergency legislation, they were told to spend it as quickly as they could. And what's happened in many cases, people who run the town halls, the people who are making these decisions tend to be wealthy middle class people, and the first thing they've done is ensure that their road network, in other words, the best example is around London Fields. Lots of nice wealthy people living in them Edwardian houses around London Fields. Not only have they managed to get all of their local roads closed, they've also managed to get the major thoroughfares like Richmond Road closed, just causing chaos throughout. It's very, very difficult to challenge. We're challenging them all on an individual basis, and when they come up to be made permanent and consultations are carried out, obviously we'll be replying to all of them. But until time to consultations are done, we can go. The added problem that we have is that the Prime Minister's key transport advisor is Andrew Gilligan. Andrew Gilligan was the Mayor's former cycling czar. He was the one responsible for the cycle superhighway on the embankment, and also the planning of many of the other highways the current mayor has installed. Andrew Gilligan is an absolute committed cyclist, and he has been working furiously behind the scenes. He's been appointed onto the board by Boris as part of the funding bailout, and he is pulling all the strings. Gilligan is running amok. You will have seen we managed to get some stuff in the media as to what's going on in the Mail on Sunday a few weeks ago, and hopefully we can see some of it repeated in the Guardian this weekend, whereby Gilligan was phoning up councillors at Kensington and Chelsea, phoning councillors at Camden when they're looking at removing the scheme on the Euston Road or TfL work, also the scheme in Kensington High Street, and he's threatening to send Boris down there on his bike. I mean, the man's powers are quite incredible. We've done lots of FOIs. We've got lots of examples of him actually writing to and phoning individual councillors, not council leaders, councillors, to ensure that cycle lanes are installed and roads are closed, riding roughshod. Not only us, but many local residents and even the bus network. It's a mess. I raised this with Heidi when we met earlier in the week, and I think it's fair to say that they're aware that Gilligan's political machinations are causing them problems, because they're getting the blame for a lot of it, and it's all been installed by him. I mean, it really is. It's a political masterclass, really, in how to get things done and want it done your way. The problem that we've got is trying to overturn all of this. Gilligan's powers in number 10 are legendary. He's got Boris's ear, very few other people have, and he's just pushing things through. I mean, we've become aware that a lot of the stuff that's gone on, even the cabinet ministers are not aware of. In fact, we're aware of a very embarrassing conversation between a senior government minister and the mayor. And when he raised what's going on with the cycle lanes, the mayor said to him, "Well, you know, don't ask me, you need to ask Gilligan." The minister just wasn't aware of what's going on. And it's very, very difficult to try and challenge somebody with that sort of power and autonomy. Where we can challenge any of these things legally, as and when they're made permanent, we will do. You'll be aware that we judicially reviewed the Bishop Gate scheme. We're currently awaiting the decision on that. We did that jointly with UTAG. A cost of, depending if we lose, a cost of probably £150,000 by the time we pay our costs, or half of, we pay our costs and half of TfL's costs and half of our costs, which we UTAG. We are optimistic on that one. I mean, Richard dealt with it, and if there's any questions on that, he'll come back on those. But we're optimistic that that one went better than we thought. We don't have a lot of luck in these high court proceedings. The reason being, we're always challenging, you know, statutory authorities, and the mindset of the legal profession is that they're right unless you can really prove they're wrong. The call I had with Andy Byford on Tuesday, he let slip that they're not overly confident that they're going to win this challenge. They're going to win. They think that we're going to win this challenge on Bishop's Gate. We will obviously then see whatever we can do to get it set as a legal precedent going forward to challenge anymore. We're also currently getting advice on whether if we win and a precedent is there, whether it can be retrospectively applied, and whether we can challenge schemes like Bank Junction and Tottenham Court Road, which is now coming, using this case as an example. So there's a lot to play for. I sat through most of the hearings. Richard sat through them all, and I mean, TfL put up a good fight. I actually think our case is better, and a lot of the questions the judge was asking did tend to indicate that she was seeing things our way. But as you know, seeing things our way doesn't always go the way of judgments. Let me just see what questions we've now got. But somebody just asked, what's the lowest number of members that we could drop to before TfL stops seeing us as a representative unit in London? Well, firstly, we don't tell TfL our membership figures. I mean, I think they're pretty much aware. They're aware of a lot of what's going on. If the number of drivers, we certainly still have 50% of London's taxi drivers as members. As I said, the number of drivers is realistically probably down below 18,000 now. So even if our membership is only 9,000, it is at the moment, we've still got 50% of the traders members. So we're still the biggest association by far. We're still the only ones that TfL consult with on a regular basis first. So the whilst a worry, I don't think it's necessarily a worry with regard to our representations from TfL. In hindsight, someone said, should we have got behind where the buses go and the taxis go sooner? We've been, the answer is that's always been our position. To be fair, the soundbite wasn't ours, where buses go, taxis go. We did nick that from somebody else, but that has been our position for many, many years, although we didn't actually use that soundbite. We've certainly been going with that one. Next question is, wasn't it said by an ex-executive member it would be good for numbers to drop? Sorry, no idea on that one. No, I have got an idea on that, actually. I do know what that was about. That was Bob Oddie a few years back when he was talking about members' income. And Bob was always of the opinion, it's not an opinion I share, but Bob was always of the opinion that if there was less taxi drivers, those that were out there would earn more money. That's what that was. And that was a throwaway mark at a branch meeting, I think, many years ago. Were Ltda staff furloughed, and if so, how many? Yes, we did furlough some staff at the beginning on the March scheme. How many? I think it varied. What we did, we furloughed some people for a month, and then we brought them back, and we furloughed other people for a month. I think it probably affected seven or eight staff members. Yeah, over a period of months. Nobody is furloughed at the moment. Everybody is back. And the reality is we are in fact busier than ever. The membership department is certainly swamped, as I said to you earlier, with people coming and going. The number of calls that we're receiving on the cycle staff, on the road closures and the financial support calls that we get, a lot of it's from individual taxi driver accountants asking us about where they stand with a furlough, where they stand with some of the tax stuff that I've explained to you, and asking for our help in getting individual MPs to write to the Chancellor on behalf of them, and all of that sort of stuff is being done. I've just got an accounts question that's pop up. So this is for on page 11 of the accounts, show a difference of £800,000 on the previous year. Why is that? Simon and Stephen is frantically rummaging through the accounts.
Hello there. Right. The reason for that 847,000 is basically, as I had explained a little bit earlier, that during the year, the association spent more money on various of its activities during the year than it received in, including all the other sickness scheme, legal aid, members and lobbying costs. So that is the reason that the cash balance reduced by the 847,000, and it virtually reflects the loss sustained for the year.
Well, thank you for that. Right, the next question we've got is on the why are the lottery figures why aren't the lottery figures in the account? You know, we have a members lottery. That's a very good question. I don't know if we know the answer to that. Simon says, Stephen says they are. Hold on, they're just. Hold on, we're just going to find the answer.
It's a very, very small number, and it's included within sundry income, which go on page 15. That 10,000 is not even all of the doesn't relate to the lottery, because money comes in and then the prizes are all paid out.
Right. We've just got another. Why did the Ltda not support the Where Buses Go Taxi Go demos, but now support UTAG on Bishopsgate Busgate? Well, the reason for that is we didn't think that the demos were particularly constructive or were going to get us where we wanted to go, i.e. where the buses go. That was we supported the UTAG case. We was approached by UTAG and who said that they were going to run the challenge. We looked at it. We spoke to their lawyers that they'd got set up. Richard was heavily involved in it. And we took a decision that there was a reasonable chance of success, a better than even chance of success, and we decided to throw the money at that. If anything's going to win it, it's going to be a legal challenge. The fact that TfL have fought tooth and nail through the High Courts to stop us getting it tells you that they were never going to give in, because we were blocked in Parliament Square or Bank Junction or wherever it is. I'm firmly of the opinion that I'm a big supporter. Firmly of the opinion that in the current day and age, with the political stuff that's going on, standing outside of the bank is not where we want to be. We need to be inside, securing access. If we can't, we need to be challenging them in the courts, as we said earlier. Right. Let me just check the questions. I think that is the last question I've got. Right, subscriptions. Why have we not cancelled subs or reduced subscriptions this year? We looked at doing that, as you recall. We did have 2 months where we charged 50% subs. The problem that we had with that is that we had many members who weren't working, but equally some who were. We had some who, as you're aware, are currently working as delivery drivers. And in fact, some of the legal cases that we're currently defending members on relate to those driving jobs that they were doing, and whilst not driving a cab. So we're currently defending several members involved in incidents. One driving a supermarket lorry, one driving an NHS vehicle, and I think another one was a courier, a motorbike courier. But we're actually defending those members because they were fully financial members. And it seems it's very difficult to work out. We've got members who are earning money and are doing quite well, and others are not earning anything. And we had emails from members offering to pay the subscriptions for other members. And we took the decision that, as part of the tax allowance, our subs work out, as you know, just over £1 a week. We haven't put our subs up in over 20 years. And the decision was that we were still providing the service that we've always provided. We're dealing with more calls than ever. while it would be extremely difficult to give some members a subs break and not charge them whilst offering them all our services, but still charge others, it would have been very, very difficult to know who was doing what. To apply it blanket across would have cost us an absolute fortune. And you can see from our accounts that would have, you know, we would have cost us a substantial amount of money towards the end of the year. So the decision was made. After we did the first two, so as I said, some members received furlough money, some members were working in different jobs, and some were doing quite well, most weren't. It was a decision that we made, we've stuck with, and obviously those members that we've lost, some of which are still driving a cab and have decided not to pay us, but the vast majority of which have left the trade altogether. So it could be a situation where we would be giving somebody free subs with long tips left with no intention of ever returning. So that's why that decision was made. That is the last question that I've got. Sorry, I've just got one. The question's just come up. In the local council elections, can we get organised so we vote appropriately for a friendly councillor to represent us and vote to get rid of LTNs and for the LTDA to guide us? I mean, that's a very, very relevant point. The council elections are coming up in May. You'll be aware there's all sorts of stuff going on. Farage is talking about starting a party to challenge anyone who's supporting his local LTNs. What we will be doing coming up to the local elections, we don't normally get involved in local elections in any way, shape or form. But what we will be doing, we will be targeting the ones that are directly affecting taxi drivers. And we will then be negotiating or talking to the various councillors that are standing in those wards. And if there is somebody standing, irrespective of what party they're standing for, we will offer support and we will advise our members in those wards to support those councillors that are objecting to the LTNs. Coming up to the mayoral election, so I've just got a question just come up there about, are we supporting a specific mayoral candidate? Coming up to the mayoral elections in May, which was postponed from last year, we've already met with all the candidates. As you know, we're totally apolitical, and we've got to be very careful as to what we do, because Sadiq is still the hands-on favourite, when the reality is that any of the other candidates that are standing, any of them, would probably be better for us currently than Sadiq. I don't think it's necessarily Sadiq, but I think it's some of his advisors that have alienated the cab trade. His main contender is Sean Bailey. He was up here a few weeks ago. We've also met with Curtin. We've also met with Brian Rose. We've also met with Farah London, who's standing. But these fringe candidates realistically don't take a chance, although their voting could impact, because it comes down to second preference voting, depending on how people vote. Sadiq is still odds-on favourite. Sean Bailey could win it if he was to concentrate on the outer donut ring of London, which is how Boris got elected when he was mayor. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like the Tories are putting a lot of money or a lot of support into Sean Bailey's campaign. I think they see it as a foregone conclusion, and they're just sort of, paying lip service to it. I think they're wrong. I think with the right amount of money and the right campaign, if Bailey was to come out against the ULEZ, if he was to come out against some of these LTNs, especially in the outer ring, he could win enough votes to do it, especially if the beat, which eludes some in inner London. But The question is, are we supporting a specific candidate? No, we're not. We're giving them all a platform going forward. The only one we've yet to speak to on the election is Sadiq, but we'll obviously speak to him coming up to May. We will be using that to try and get as many guarantees from Sadiq as we can. And depending what we get is going to be dependent on how confident he's going to win. If he's confident he's going to win, he's going to offer us nothing. If he's getting worried about Bailey and getting worried about other stuff, he might start offering weakness and some. How much money did the Ltda contribute to UTAG? As I said, the legal bills are not in yet, and it depends if we win or lose. If we win, TfL will be paying the legal bill, and it'll cost us very little. If we lose, we're probably in for about 150 grand with our 50% share of the legal costs and TfL's legal costs. Right, Richard, I think we'll move on to your the next item on the agenda, which is the rule change.
Okay, thanks very much, Steve. I'll just add a little bit to what you're saying about the local LCNs, etc., and the problems we've been having. We've been very busy indeed speaking to many of London's local authorities, and some are better than others. I've spoken to Southwark recently. I speak to Westminster all the time. I've spoken to Tower Hamlets, and they're all a bit different. And Kensington and Chelsea, once again, they're very different. And we've had some success with some of them. I'm not going to claim credit for anything, so I don't think it works that way. I think you add your weight to opinions, and if you get your way in the end, that's great. But you know, I'd never go around and say, well, I got the Kensington cycle lane taken out, because I didn't. But I did put my weight towards it. And we've reached agreement with Southwark that all their bus gates will include taxis, whereas I've met the Mayor of Tower Hamlets on 3 occasions, and he keeps saying to me, well, we can't allow you into the Wapping bus gate because of all our private hire drivers that are voters in Tower Hamlets. So, of course, we have all the arguments about that, but there is this difference. And while some of the count on future rule changes, if we change the rules of the association, it affects all the members, not just the members that attend branch meetings. So therefore, it's quite a simple rule. And I'll just read it out to you what it will be. It'll be a new rule 18, and it's specifically 18A, which will say an ordinary resolution announced at a general meeting proposing a change to these rules shall be decided after the meeting by a simple majority of the votes cast by the members in writing. So therefore, the intention is that from now on, whenever any rule of the association gets changed, any ordinary rule, there will be a vote organised amongst the membership to give it their blessing or not. So therefore 100% of the members will be able to vote, not just the 0.7% of members that currently attend branch meetings. That can't be right, it can't be fair, it can't be democratic, and so we're doing everything we can to try and change that. There will be a number of consequent rule changes that go along with the bit that I've just read out. Such as there's no need for branch delegates anymore. So those rules will be amended consequently, but it'll all be set out in a voting paper that you'll receive from Civica. Shortly after this meeting this morning, we'll get them to arrange a ballot. Everything will be set out clearly in writing, and it won't need, well, it needs barely any explanation, and I'm sure everybody is capable of making up their mind whether they all want to vote on rule changes or whether they don't. So that's what's going to happen. Thanks, Steve. That's it. I don't know if we've lost Steve.
No, You've got me back, Richard. Sorry, we're,
Right, we've done the rule change. I'm not sure if there's anything else that's still left to be done, but you're in charge of communications.
I've got another question that's just popped up. Do I think the webinars are failures? We've now got 41 attendees, so we've only got 41 members out of 9,000 attend. When we had the physical AGMs, I think the record there was about 70 or 75 or something. It was never massively attended. The vast majority of members have explained many times if they want to know something, they email us or they call us invariably. And as with all, the only time there's a few people that have an interest into the running of it, and the vast majority don't. And we sent an email out to all our members. We put it in the paper, and 42 members decided to join us this morning. I'm pleased that 42 are. Look, we accept that this hasn't been as good as a real life AGM. But in the current situation, what else can we do? We've had an outbreak of the dreaded COVID here at Woodfield, the housing rate, Suffolk Street, and Richard's and a few other people have not been in self-isolating, God knows what. And we couldn't have held the AGM under the current tier system anyway. If anybody has not managed to ask a question that they wanted to ask or has had problems with the IT or the software, then obviously email us and we'll respond in the normal way as quickly as we can. If you've got any specific questions on the account, when you do email it, you obviously detail what page it's on, what paragraph it relates to, and if we can't answer it, obviously we'll forward it on to the auditors to answer it. And I think that is it. I'll thank everybody for coming. I'll wish everybody a safe and festive New Year as best you can, and we will be sending this ballot rule change out, as Richard said, as early as we can. It will be in the new year now, and we can get Civica to organise it. And in relation to the question about the LTNs and what we're going to do, we will obviously be contacting members in individual boroughs with specific details of councillors that are standing in their wards and those that are perhaps supporting the keeping of these traffic schemes that have so many problems, and asking them to vote perhaps those that are going to take them out. So we'll be doing that, and you'll be hearing from us all in the new year. Thank you.